The lights cut out mid-dinner, the whole house goes dark at once, and one person is already halfway to the breaker box before anyone else has finished asking what happened. They flip the switch back, the lights come on, and they're back at the table before their food's even gone cold. They didn't secretly study electrical wiring. Something happens in the half-second between "this is broken" and "let me look at it." And once you understand what that something actually is, you'll start noticing it everywhere. The neighbor who's already on their knees under the kitchen sink with a wrench while everyone else is scrolling for an emergency plumber's number. The uncle who pops the hood and finds the loose battery cable in under a minute while everyone else is already calling a tow truck. The person who just starts. Meanwhile, you're standing there wondering what's wrong with you, that your first instinct was closer to panic than problem solving. Here's what actually separates these people, and it isn't experience, at least not in the way you'd think. Psychologist Albert Bandura named this back in the late 1970s, self-efficacy. Not general optimism, not a vague sense that things work out. Something much more specific. The belief that you personally are capable of handling the exact thing in front of you. I've handled things before, and this is handleable too. Bandura's research found that this one belief changes how long someone sticks with a problem before giving up, and how much effort they're willing to spend when it gets hard. So where does that belief come from? It usually traces back to something almost embarrassingly small. Think about the first time a kid actually fixes something, genuinely fixes it, and it works. They jiggle the cord and the lamp comes back on. They hold pressure on a scraped knee and the bleeding actually stops. That moment does something that has nothing to do with the lamp or the knee. It quietly rewires how they relate to problems going forward. The world stops being something that just happens to them and becomes something they can reach into and change. After that, when something breaks, their nervous system doesn't slam into shutdown. It shifts into something closer to curiosity. Oh, this is a puzzle. I've solved puzzles before. Bandura called these mastery experiences, and they remain the single strongest source of self-efficacy researchers have found, stronger than being told you're capable, stronger than watching someone else do it. Doing it yourself is the only thing that actually sticks. There's a second piece to this, one about how people relate to uncertainty itself. Psychologist Julian Rotter spent years studying what he called locus of control, how much someone believes their own actions shape outcomes versus luck, fate, or forces entirely outside them. People who land on the internal end of that scale don't just fix more things. They're less likely to develop depression, they handle stress without their whole life falling apart around it, and they persist longer at hard problems. It shows up across cultures and age groups. The belief that your effort actually matters may be one of the more protective psychological traits a person can carry around. And almost none of these people were born this way. It traces back to specific moments, usually early, where someone either handed them agency or left them no choice but to build it themselves. Sometimes it's a parent who says, "I'm not going to solve this for you, but I'll help you figure it out." Sometimes it's the opposite. Nobody was there to help at all, so the kid learned to help themselves out of necessity. Strange as it sounds, both paths tend to land in the same place. Here's the part that surprises people, because from the outside it looks like confidence, and it isn't quite that. When someone who's good at fixing things walks into a genuinely broken situation, they don't have some secret certainty it'll work out. They feel the same uncertainty you do. What's different is that the uncertainty doesn't register as a verdict. It registers as a starting point. There's a name for this too: tolerance of ambiguity, the capacity to sit inside a situation where you don't yet know the answer without falling apart while you figure it out. People who struggle with ambiguity need resolution fast. They need to be told it's going to be okay right now. And when that reassurance doesn't come, the anxiety takes over, and they either freeze or hand the problem to whoever seems calmest and quietly step back. Somewhere along the way, the fixer learned to be okay living in that uncomfortable middle space a little longer than most people can stand. Now, an honest pause, because leaving this part out would make the picture incomplete. Some people who can fix nearly anything, emotionally, practically, logistically, aren't operating from strength at all. For some of them, fixing things was how they earned their place. The approval lived in the solution. Being visibly helpless was, at some point in their life, genuinely risky, so their nervous system made a quiet decision: never again. That's less a superpower and more a coping mechanism wearing one. You can usually spot it by trying to hand them something to let go of. They can't quite relax. They hover. They offer suggestions nobody asked for. An unsolved problem anywhere near them starts to feel like something unresolved inside them. Then there's the other kind, and this is the one actually worth paying attention to. The person who fixes things purely out of curiosity, because broken things genuinely delight them. The gap between not working and working is, to them, one of the most interesting places in the world. They'll take apart something they already fixed just to understand it better. They'll ask questions with zero practical use. They'll explain exactly what went wrong in more detail than anyone requested, clearly thrilled, like they just discovered something beautiful. These are people who fell in love with competence itself, not the outcome, the actual process of figuring something out. Spending time around someone like that tends to be quietly recalibrating, because what they demonstrate, without ever meaning to, is that not knowing how to do something is a temporary state. Broken isn't a permanent condition. You can put your hands on a problem and actually move it. You might be recognizing yourself in all of this, or you might be realizing the opposite, that this whole way of relating to problems feels completely foreign to you. If that's you, here's something worth hearing directly. The reason you hand your broken things to someone else isn't a character flaw, it's a history. A set of experiences that taught you problems are things that happen to you, rather than things you can happen to. And that isn't permanent either. The entire architecture behind self-efficacy is that it's built, not inherited, through small experiences of trying and having it work. Not dramatic rescues, just the screw you tightened yourself, the call you made instead of waiting for someone else to make it. The one time you didn't wait to be saved. Understanding why you're wired a certain way is only half of it, though. The harder part is doing something with that understanding, because awareness without any structure around it tends to just become more material for your brain to circle. You notice the pattern, name it, think about it a lot, and nothing actually moves. Closing that gap between knowing and changing usually starts the same way self-efficacy always has: small, boring, repeatable wins. Not a total life overhaul, just proof, collected one tiny instance at a time, that you're someone who can.